What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION and it's finally here, the third episode of Star Wars The Acolyte, the one that will apparently divide the fan base and kill Star Wars for good. So what happened exactly, and have the rumors been true? Well, we'll definitely talk about that, as well as woke freaks attacking the Critical Drinker and others over their coverage of Star Wars, as well as journalists running damage control while calling OG fans bigots and racists. This is a heated video, fellas. Let's get cooking. So yesterday, the third episode of The Acolyte came out, which was heavily hinted at being the episode that would kill Star Wars for a lot of OG fans, and it did to a degree now that I've seen it. I guess spoilers, because to be real with you, there's no way I can speak about this otherwise. So the episode is about the twin girls when they were kids, and they were raised by a coven of witches, which are led by Joni Turner-Smith, who plays Anastasia, who's not only the leader, but also the mother of the twins, Maya and Osha too. However, it's also said within the episode that Anastasia was not alone in creating the twins herself, and at one point in the episode, the 4 Jedis that have been shown in the previous episodes show up. It's Soul, the Squid Game guy, Trinity from The Matrix, the white guy who has terrible hair and makeup, and the big Wookiee who's called Kalnaka. Trinity from The Matrix, her name in this show is Master Indara. She dies in the first episode if you remember. Anyways, it's hinted throughout the episode that the twins have been stalked for a while by these 4 Jedi because they have immense force powers. Soul, the Squid Game guy, especially wants to save them from these witches. The entire episode builds up to this event the witches want to enact called the Ascension, which is pretty much a ceremony where all the lesbian witches start moaning and rolling their eyes back and moving their hands around like they're on drugs or something. It's really bad. This allows Anastasia to call upon the power of the witches to place a white mark on May's head, marking her as a witch. But the ritual gets interrupted by the Jedi storming in, demanding to see the children. Osha doesn't get marked by the witches, which we know because she doesn't have the white mark on her like May or Anastasia does. However, there is one part where Trinity from The Matrix says it's against Republic law for the witches to teach children their ways. And this forces the kids into the open, and the Jedi offer the kids training to become Jedi themselves. Anastasia, the leader of the witches, accepts this only to bring the conversation to an end in hopes that there isn't any violence or killing. This is where Anastasia and this Dathomir-looking woman, whose name I don't remember, but here they are on screen talking, and there's a scene where Anastasia and the horned lesbian witch lady talk about the twins and how they need to keep secret how they were made. And the horned witch says she should have a say with what happens with the twins because she carried them. But Anastasia says she has more say than she does because she created them. This confirms what Alan Ng of Film Threat was alluding to, that the twin girls are 100% born without a father. And they were created through the combining of DNA and force-like powers of these witches in order to create them. So now men are no longer needed to give birth to human beings within the Star Wars mythology. Trinity from The Matrix even says during their heated conversation when she sees the twins, "Where is their father?" To which Anastasia and Horn Witch Lesbian just kinda stay quiet. So this is clearly something that is not well known within the entirety of the galaxy whatsoever. However, it's bullshit regardless, because obviously 2 women cannot give birth to a child using their DNA. That's not how biology works. Of course, some will say, well, this is science fiction, so what does it matter? But if rules don't matter, then nothing does, which ruins everything. We know Anakin was born basically like Jesus, where his mom was made pregnant by the Force to some degree. But if anything, this proves that the Force is actually intrinsically male-oriented rather than being female, which the Acolyte implies. Because if the Force was female, it would obviously require a man in order to give birth to a child, which wouldn't make any sense, which is basically what is happening in The Acolyte. George Lucas pretty much confirmed this decades ago with Anakin already, but using the DNA of 2 women to birth mixed black and white kids makes no sense at all. Doubly so because the horned witch lady has white skin but also has horns, yet neither twin has anything on their heads resembling horns. So what's happening? Are the twins that were carried by the horned witch space lesbian to birth, but they only kept the white skin, which mixed with Anastasia's black ancestry, but the horns were conveniently kept out? This then explains that Anastasia somehow has some mysterious power over the Force that is akin to gene manipulation or something. Like, she could use the Force or whatever to create the exact twins that she wants, because what are the chances the kids were not only born, but as twins, but also as two girls? There's plenty of real life examples of twins being born with opposite genders too. This just all seems like bad Tumblr fanfiction on Leslie Headland's and Kathleen Kennedy's part pretty much. They're bending the rules of everything that has been established in order to make what they want happen. I think one of the baffling decisions here that will piss off many is simply that by making Osha and May born via the Force like Anakin, it means that what Anakin was isn't unique or special anymore. But it is simply something that can happen as long as someone, I guess, is powerful enough with the Force and can just use it to do that. This is what I mean when I say that adding to lore in controversial ways can retroactively ruin previous lore bits and stories in response. It's the Rhodey was a Skrull all along bit again. Knowing Rhodey has been a Skrull for a certain period of time means the Rhodey who said goodbye to Tony in Avengers Endgame wasn't Rhodey, it was a Skrull all along. That inadvertently takes away from that point and moment in the MCU, the same way the Rhodey Skrull was fighting and protecting Earth, and also keeping the Avengers HQ running when the other Avengers were displaced. It retroactively made everything worse, and it also makes little sense too. This is that, but worse of course, because this means Anakin was never the chosen one. He was never the one who was meant to bring balance to the Force, and his birth was not extraordinary or unique in any way. He was just someone that was made like May and Osha, and technically they exist before Anakin, so his existence is not even the first circumstance of this even happening. This undoes a lot of lore and the sacred-esque tone of what Anakin's legacy is to the Force and Star Wars as a whole. This episode basically made Anakin worse and pointless in order to make Leslie Headland's twin black girls born from space lesbian witches a thing now. She essentially looked at the Mona Lisa and thought that she could do better, so she burned it down in order to make her own version, if that makes any sense. This proves that Disney and the people within the creative spheres there do not care about legacy or lore whatsoever. It's as Kylo Ren said, kill the past or something, force it if you have to. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but you got the point. Disney just had Leslie Headland take her pants off and shit in Anakin's eyes basically. But it goes beyond this too, because throughout this episode, Anastasia and the other witches refer to the Force as the Thread. Now I thought I was crazy, and maybe I still am, but I don't recall there ever being something called the Thread before, unless my memory is failing me. Maybe I'll get roasted for this, but I don't know. But to me, what I took away from this episode and how Anastasia kept referring to it, the Thread basically replaces the Force as the de facto power of this galaxy and beyond. The witches throughout the episode explain how the Thread is what connects all living beings, and that the Force, according to the witches, does not dictate destiny. Which again means Anakin was never the destined one or meant to bring balance. It was all a lie, and destiny does not exist in Star Wars now apparently either. So again, with the retroactive dialogue, but like I was saying, they do push the idea that the Thread is basically the Force. Maybe it's just their name for it. But the way the witches perceive and use the Thread, they consider it to be something that is neither good or evil, neither Jedi or Sith per se. Which means what Leslie Headland and Kathleen Kennedy are insinuating here, of course I could be wrong, the whole show isn't done and out yet, but what I gathered from this was that the Force was not split in the middle at all as we perceived it before, but instead it is just the Thread now. It is a power that exists but changes based on how the people who can tap into it decide to use it. This then demystifies the Force and makes it so that Disney can perceive Sith and Jedi as no longer being two sides of the same coin. Instead, they are now just two different camps among many other camps of Force users or Thread users that can all do whatever they want. Which also ruins the Force, by the way, because this means someone can have negative or violent emotions while using the Force, but it doesn't push them towards the dark side per se. And the same goes for the light side, but this again, like the Anakin thing, retroactively also just makes everything worse now. Every decision here has pretty much just made the original trilogy of films worse due to the existence of this 44-minute episode 3 of The Acolyte. Also later on, Osha accepts becoming a Jedi. May doesn't like that, so she locks Osha in her room and burns a book to light the complex on fire. And somehow this single fire ends up engulfing the entire complex and literally just ends up blowing up and burning the whole place down. I have no idea how a fire started by a book burns down an entire citadel in the middle of nowhere that's made of concrete, by the way, but there you go. Then again, they had that open fire in the first episode, so none of this makes sense anyways. We then see Squid Game guy take Osha and they run past the coven of witches which have all been slain and killed off screen. Anastasia is dead too, which is the twins' mom, or dad, I guess, if you want to be technical. Anyways, the episode ends with Osha crying in Squid Game's arms and May is looking all pissed off thinking the Jedi were the ones who killed the witches and left her for dead. We know May gets taken in by someone to train and I'm pretty sure it's her other mom. The horned witch lady, I mean. Her name is Coral, by the way. I literally just remember that now, so there you go. Coral likely killed the witches and took May in and told her the Jedi did it so she would embrace the dark side and kill the Republic for interfering with their space lesbian utopia. Why would Coral go as far as to kill her own wife and friends? Probably because she thinks that Anastasia allowing Osha to join the Jedi was a massive betrayal, and likely thought that there was no going back to how things were now. So Coral made the executive decision and 360 no-scoped the entire witches' coven and trained May the way she wanted to train the children, which Anastasia didn't allow. Because throughout the episode, Coral says how the kids need discipline and should be raised with a firm hand. And looking at May compared to Osha, yeah, that is basically night and day there in terms of being raised. So that's what episode 3 was all about. Anakin is not the chosen one anymore. The threat apparently is the new name Disney is going with over the Force. Or the Force is an aspect of the thread. I'm not 100% sure, but I guess we'll see. Also, lesbians can have children and anyone can be born via the Force, and light and dark don't really matter anymore. So there you go, fellas. Just pure garbage all around. What do you think about all of this? Of course, I'll keep you guys all updated as new episodes come out, but let's also move on to this other Star Wars related story because this is also ridiculous. We have this discourse that's surrounding the Critical Drinker who recently has been covering the Acolyte on his channel as well. And a lot of New Age Star Wars fans have all drank the Kool-Aid and are really upset that people like Drinker and Star Wars Theory are out here discussing how bad this show is. One of these comments was by Connor B. Don't harass this person because this is someone who genuinely likes the Acolyte. So, they likely have brain damage, so let's not punch down too much. But anyways, Connor said this in regards to Drinker's newest video. I'm sick and tired of being labeled racist and homophobic simply for being critical of Star Wars. To discuss this problem, I've invited a racist and a homophobe on the show. They think they landed a gotcha, but not really. After all, Drinker nor anyone else on the panel like Mahler and such are racist or homophobic. Just because you discuss things and are critical of them does not mean you're racist, homophobic, or any other buzzword insert here. These sorts of individuals are against people like Drinker and more simply because they don't want their ESG Soy Wars show to be criticized and pulled apart for being terrible. It's the classic woke ideological stance. They always resort to calling you bad things because they know if they actually had to back up the source material that these YouTubers discuss, they would lose in a matter of seconds. The quality of what these New Age fans accept is proof alone. Saying the Acolyte is anywhere near the best of anything sharing the name Star Wars tells me everything that I need to know about you. You probably also think there's a million genders. You were also raised in schools that have beaten ideology into your brain for years. And you unknowingly don't realize that after years of indoctrination, you have become an NPC and have borderline brain damage, and your IQ and social awareness and common sense skills are at a drastically lower level than the people who are older than you that weren't raised how you were. Any New Age Star Wars fans that can look me in the eyes and tell me something like the Disney trilogy, Book of Boba Fett, or Acolyte is somehow better than Empire or A New Hope, I'm not sorry when I say I don't value your opinion at all. Because it's clear if you are willing to accept the sludge and gorge down on it, you're the reason why we're here to begin with. These people have been conditioned to such middlingly objectively bad content for so many years, they don't know any better. The Acolyte is objectively dog shit. Not only is it just not a good show, but it's laughably boring and bizarrely paced as well. Osha and May are boring characters, none of the supporting cast is memorable, and they wasted X-23's actor on some weird, mongoloid creature of a look like, what in the holiest of hells is this character design, guys? Come on. They simply attack the Critical Drinker, and even people like me, Grums or Yellow Flash, simply because we don't subscribe to their agenda. We will also never bow, and we know that these projects have all been hijacked and ruined and are being driven into their graves far earlier than intended. Like the fact one Twitter user recently decided to tweet this and tag me, which read, "I know I say this a lot, but I genuinely want this guy gone. Not even talking about getting his account banned, Hermano needs to be in a grave. These people want us dead." By the way, this Brianna person broke TOS by saying this. They're genuinely wishing for me to die? Because I objectively looked at a trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows and made a joke because Ubisoft decided to add rap hip-hop beats to Yasuke's combat theme when he fights in feudal Japan. Like, how can you call us racist when the people making these slop DEI fests are out here putting literal hip-hop music in your samurai game? You can't be serious, guys. You deserve better. The fact one user pointed out that Ubisoft and AC Shadows has rice growing when the sakura trees are blooming confirms that Ubisoft doesn't understand how seasons or weather works within the confines of Japan itself. Look, the point here is that by accepting the slop, whether it's Ass Creed or Star Wars, you are emboldening these people into doing more stupid stuff in the future. None of it is okay. You need to stop accepting slop all the time when it comes to the media that you consume. I know there's people who think what I or Drinker does is somehow harmful, but the reality is we do this because we want better for you and everyone else. We don't want media to suck. The existence of our channels, of the communities, all of it. It is a response to the lack of genuine respect from these companies that control these IP. You think I want Star Wars to suck? You really think I want the first Japanese game set in Japan for Assassin's Creed to star a guy like Yasuke, who historically did nothing, surrendered, and then was given back to his masters? You really think I want these games and movies and shows to be bad on purpose? All I really want is for media to return to when quality and respect mattered again. I remember the years of the 2000s to the mid-2010s when media was actually still pretty damn good, all things considered. These days, 95% of what comes out is unplayable garbage disguised as products. I was very happy to be wrong when X-Men 97, for example, turned out to be good, because finally we had a good Marvel product for once. I want more of that. I want less of the bad stuff. Whoever hates me or Drinker or others, just know, we only want good stuff again. That's it. And none of that can happen if we don't push back. Otherwise we end up like the idiots attacking Drinker and me who have long grown content living in their pod, eating the bugs and owning nothing. I don't want to live my life like a slave. I want to be my own person. And I will not accept your garbage no matter how much you push it onto me. Then we also had this article which kind of just neatly ties this all up from Inverse, and it's titled, "The Acolyte Isn't Ruining Star Wars, You Are." I figure I read you what some of this article says because it perfectly exemplifies how these people have largely gone on both knees and have already accepted the slop coming their way, and I quote, "No one hates Star Wars more than those who claim to be Star Wars fans. Sure, the past few years have given the fandom plenty to critique. The sequel splintered the fan base beyond recognition, and Lucasfilm's efforts to expand the galaxy on the small screen have been mixed at best. And in some cases, criticism is inevitable. Not everyone will find something to like in the franchise's recent output. At a certain point, though, the discourse reaches a fever pitch and even Lucasfilm's most promising projects get swept up in the drama. The Acolyte is not the first Star Wars project to face the brunt of fan backlash, and it likely won't be the last. But the new live-action series is also one of the best additions to that galaxy far away in a long time, embracing decades of nostalgia while also thinking critically on the franchise's legacy. It also might be the most diverse Star Wars story yet, and while that's definitely a boon for marginalized fans, it's made the Acolyte the target of a vocal splinter of the fandom. Whether you know them as the Fandom Menace or a cluster of blue checkmark users on Twitter, it's impossible to escape their orbit. The same folks that review bomb diverse swings like Marvel's Eternals and the Lord of the Rings prequel, The Rings of Power, have now set their sights on the Acolyte. To hear them tell it, the series is the worst thing that's ever happened to Star Wars, and its showrunner Leslie Headland is just as fiendish as Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. To them, the Acolyte's woke agenda is something to be feared. It's ruining Star Wars. It's poisoning pop culture itself. It needs to be stopped by any means necessary. It's not outright shocking to see something like the Acolyte marred by racist, misogynistic, and even anti-LGBTQ backlash. That Star Wars fans' devotees would share multiple bad faith rants about the series on YouTube or tank its audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is just par of the course at this point. This is, after all, the same fandom that launched consistent attacks against actors like John Boyega, Kelly Marie Tran, and Daisy Ridley. The same fandom that were publicly admonished by Ewan McGregor himself when Obi-Wan Kenobi faced similar pushback. The problem is that nothing has changed. The origins of this toxicity aren't difficult to figure out. At the end of the day, it boils down to entitlement. Many male fans feel like they own the franchise and are determined to safeguard it from anyone that could challenge that ownership. That makes it hard for disparate groups to coexist, and it's even harder for any non-white, non-male creatives hoping to tell stories within the franchise. What began as a relatively niche issue has become Lucasfilm's biggest hurdle moving forward. The Acolyte can weather the storm. After all, it's been well received by critics. But what about the fandom and its relationship to those guiding the franchise now? As the discourse spirals out of control, it's getting harder to ignore it outright. There's no easy way out, but something has to change. Otherwise, this vocal minority will end up ruining Star Wars for the rest of us." End quote. So they're saying that people like me, Drinker, and more, we are the reason why Star Wars sucks now. Because we clearly were in the writer's room coming up with the ideas like space lesbian force nonsense and making Anakin no longer the chosen one apparently. As you can see from this mega stuffed episode, Star Wars is beyond dead. It actually no longer resembles the franchise it once was whatsoever. None of the terminologies mean anything anymore. The Force can be whatever you want conveniently, and lesbians can give birth without men now. Aren't you glad to be a Star Wars fan in the year that is 2024, guys? Not me, by the way. This is garbage, but let me know what you think, and I thank you for watching. Subscribe, share, like the video, and thanks to my patrons as well. I am editing this late in the night. I am tired, but I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And Star Wars is officially dead.